Hello and welcome to another video from
Absolute Game of Nerd!
All right, and we are here, week 5, episode 5. Sadly, that means we are on the back half of season 2, House of the Dragon. Only 3 episodes left, but we are here to talk about episode 5. Mike, initial thoughts?
Yeah, definitely a slower episode. I mean, I don't think we could imagine anything being more exciting than how we ended the week before. So we knew we needed to take like a deep breath, right? That was sort of like the you have to exhale now for this episode. A lot more political machinations, but the important part is it sets up all the pieces after that major battle. You know, we lost, whether literally lost in the case of like Rhaenys, who's out of the picture in a dragon, or Aegon, who we find out is still alive, but basically out of the picture. What does the new power struggles look like? We needed this, but I think it's actually one of the most important episodes we're going to get all season for reasons I'm sure we'll discuss in a little bit.
Yeah, I will say, since you brought up Rhaenys, like one thing that I thought was like the major disappointment of the episode. I like the episode, but my one kind of big complaint is I don't think they spent enough time letting you feel the loss of Rhaenys. Like they had that quick scene of it opened with Corlys kind of, obviously upset, and then it quickly panned to Rhaenyra upset, and then that was it. Kind of obviously had that scene later with Baela and Corlys. But I don't feel like it gave a lot of the gravitas I thought it should have for losing Rhaenys.
Yeah, it was basically boiled down. Our mourning period was basically both of those characters looking sad in a silent room or looking out of the ocean. Yeah, that was pretty much it. You got to move on though. Story's booking. You know, you got to keep going.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, like you saw that the episode title was Regent, and really, I mean, it was about delegating the entire right on both sides. Like I think with Rhaenyra, I think while I think a lot of us are Team Black, like in my opinion, like she's done a horrible job of like actually executing anything. Like her whole, and I get like she wanted to make sure and be certain and things like that, but still like in doing so, she kind of has just left everyone to sit there and just kind of gripe. And, as again, we saw in her council scene this, and then on Team Green, right? Like, they, now that Aegon's kind of, out of the picture, we'll say for now, they've got to figure out who's going to be in charge of what and all that stuff. So, there's a lot of delegation going on in this episode.
Yeah. And like what you bring up a great point about, Rhaenyra is like, she's been withholding the whole time. And then when she had that whole like epiphany, when she met with Alicent and realized, oh, I am justified in being queen, she still didn't really take action. And the sort of the funny takeaway is that the only person that did take action is Daemon. And Daemon's busy as a bee. We see him doing all these political machinations and getting ready for war. And she's still on the outs with him a little bit. But he's the only person. That's what I think is really interesting at the end of the episode when she sends, I forgot his name already, her advisor to go treat with Daemon.
Oh, Alfred Broom.
Broom, yeah. So send him. And she sort of acknowledges everything we just talked about. Said, listen, I know I haven't been coming off as the most, responded to all of you. You've kind of been a pain in my ass, she says to him, but I appreciate all my advisors and I'm going to start listening to you more, basically. So that was sort of, I think like we were turning a little bit of a leaf there. And you see very important critically at the end of the episode, her son, who she's ticked at for whatever reason, despite the fact he's doing out and about doing diplomacy. And she's talking about how the fact she doesn't get to go out and ride her dragon. But she has to lay back and listen to her advisors, even her young son, who gives her a brilliant idea at the end of this episode, which will have huge ramifications moving forward. So I think this was the episode where you're right. She hasn't been a very effective leader, but she realizes now she does need to listen to the people around her because they're the ones that are going to win this war.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of Jace, I mean, you got to give the dude mad props. He's supposedly now secured the North, the Vale, and the crossing with the phrase. Like those are massive moves.
Yeah.
So power to him. I was gonna say that my favorite thing about this episode specifically was I love the scenery. Like when you read the books, which I know everyone that's watching the show hasn't read the books. When you see like George like describe these castles and these places, it's really cool. And then to see it on screen is so in this episode you got the twins. I thought looked awesome. I loved how they did the twins. The Eyrie was really cool, although it was, as I was texting with you about, it was very different than the Eyrie we saw in the Game of Thrones show. But I still thought it was very cool looking. So I love when they go to places and show them.
It was just the Bloody Gate. I think it was just Bloody Gate, so we didn't actually see the Eyrie.
Oh, you don't think that castle behind the Bloody Gate was the Eyrie?
No, I think that is Bloody Gate. Bloody Gate's a gate and a keep. And I
I
think
thought.
the Eyrie, we didn't. Did we?
Well, I mean, like they were in there. Like the next scene was Rhaena and Lady Jane inside. So
Oh
I
yeah, I
think
guess they were in there. Yeah.
because they have I know like the way up to the Eyrie is there's 3 what they call way castles. But I remember like
Right.
in the books, it's like the Moon Gate, Sky Gate, and then I think maybe the Bloody Gate, or maybe I'm mixing up the order.
Right.
But they even talk about
No,
like
no, I guess it is.
beyond the
Yeah.
first one, it really is just like a gate with like a maybe a couple like barracks or something behind them.
Yeah. You're right. I guess I read it wrong because when they met with Lady Iron, she said, she invited her to the gate, right? So like, welcome to Bloody Gate. So I guess I interpreted that maybe that was supposed to be the gate now. Yeah, I guess it was the same one they used in Game of Thrones. It did look very different though. So I did.
Yeah,
Kind
I
of
mean,
do a
because he
double
even
take.
says to Rhaena,
Alright.
"This is going to be your quarters." So they're in the castle. So that's why I'm assuming that was the
Okay.
castle.
Yeah.
And I will
Okay.
say, as a quick side note, if I
Gotcha.
had to pick anywhere to live in this whole world, it would be the Eyrie. Like I think it's so cool. The whole concept of it is
Freaky
awesome.
though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way it's described in the book is terrifying. Like I would never want to be in it in the book. That one looks like you could actually like walk the stairs up and be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting. So I guess that was the Eyrie. Yeah, I it did look again. It's not how I picture it. And I don't know how I remember it in Game of Thrones either for some reason. But the book takes over my images of these places more than the shows do. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing I always think about with Wade is in the book, they talk about if you can't climb up this hella sketchy way to get up to the Eyrie, you have to ride like a peach basket up. And if you look at that, like
exactly.
the castle they showed you, you could, like you said, you could literally just kind of stroll right up. Obviously, you got to get past all the gates and things like that, but
Yeah,
you can
gates,
still
Gotcha.
still cruise through. All right,
Yep.
so we go besides the kind of morning scenes, it goes from there to King's Landing, and they're parading Meleese's head through, and they were expecting like a big victory celebration, and instead they got glum.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I maybe I didn't realize that parading the dragon is thought of as like a bad omen. But when that guy yelled out like, "No, it's just meat," it just made me think like these people are famine, starving. Why don't they just bring Meleese in? And I mean, can you eat dragon meat?
Well, I think there's a couple different things going on. I mean, it shows it's funny. The last couple episodes, we see Kristen Cole as he's still a jerk, but he's a competent leader. But you see, he makes a mistake here. He thinks that he's going to bring this dragon in, and it's the traitor's dragon. But remember, Meleese was a dragon people have probably seen fly over the city for 100 years. It's an old dragon, and these dragons were, like that guy said, they're gods. The Targaryens are gods. No one, not just anyone, can ride a dragon. These people are elevated above a commoner because of their dragons. And here you have one like, oh no, they're just animals. It's just a big thing of meat. That's how I interpret it as. It's nothing mythological, it's nothing magical, it's nothing terrifying. They can be killed. And I think it's actually a huge miscalculation on Cole's part, because it not only do they see, wow, you guys destroyed one of these creatures that makes you all so powerful, but no, they can be destroyed, which I think is going to lowers all the Targaryens down a couple pegs in the eyes of the commoners if they already weren't sort of on the outs because of the war.
Yeah, and obviously that notion of they can be killed is big time going to lead to some things that'll happen way down the line that you and I know about.
Exactly.
So from there you get Alicent next to Aemon looking down on it. And so we'll get into these, but like Alicent had my favorite scenes of this episode. But anyways, it starts out with her there, and she immediately looks at Aemon and sees he's got the dagger, and immediately is like, something happened here. Something is up. And so I'm interested to see how much they pull at that thread.
And then she tries to get Kristen Cole to say something about it.
Yeah.
And he says, I can't say anything about that. It's like, which says volumes. Basically, he's like, I'm not saying anything, but yeah, something bad happened. Yep.
Yeah. So my favorite scenes though were, so the first being her in the council, just being like, obviously we need to elect a regent, and I've done it before, I've got the experience, blah, blah. And like she went into that council meeting thinking, I'm a shoo-in. Everyone's gonna obviously pick me to be the regent. And I loved when they kind of started to reject her, and then she's like, "Lars, what about you?" And he was like, "Well, it would be kind of silly that we're denouncing a female claim, and then we just prop you up as regent. That doesn't make a lot of sense."
Right.
And then it goes to Cole, and she's like, "Well, what about her?" He's like, "What about the hand?" And then Cole's like, "It should be Aemon." And that leads to my second favorite scene is when Allison then approached Cole, and Cole legitimately has PTSD, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's like, we gave this war over to the dragons. I have seen it. You have not, and you should be thankful that you have not seen what I've seen.
Right.
And so we have no choice but to let someone with a dragon kind of take the reins here.
Yep. Yeah. It's a Pandora's box they've opened, and that line is great too when he says, "A dragon. We gave it to the dragon, so a dragon rider should lead us."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I also wanted to point out real quick when it came to Melee's going through the city. As they did, I thought it was really good that they then also showed that the rat catchers were still hanging. Yeah. So again, they're just really building up the toll that it's taking on the small folk.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that was one of Aemon's first actions, cut them down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then going back to
it's gonna be ramifications.
Yeah. Going back to Rhaenyra and her council, like it was a great scene when Broom is like, you don't know what it's like to wage battles and how to execute them, blah, blah, blah. Great comeback by Rhaenyra when she was like, it's been peaceful this whole time. You've seen as much battle as I have. But then as the episode carries on, she kind of realized, like, look, because I wasn't a man, I wasn't given a sword, the moment I could walk. I wasn't schooled in these ways of battle. And so she kind of, recognizes where Broom's come from. And then, like you said earlier, kind of extends that olive branch to him later and is like, hey, you've got some points here. Like, let's make this work and blah, blah, blah.
Yep. No, it was a great. I like that line too. It was a good one. It's kind of like, ooh, good one. You got him. But
now, did you know?
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, when she was talking to Mysaria, I liked Mysaria's line too. It's like there are more than one ways to fight a war, and then you see Alinda Massey in her little Red Riding Hood outfit go rolling out. I have no idea though who she met up with at King's Landing. Maybe is that someone I forgot, or who was that person that opened the door?
Oh, actually, I did have a chance to look that up. I think it's just implied that it's one of her. I don't know if it's someone we're supposed to know, but it's implied that she's going to start sort of like a guerrilla, diplomatic campaign on the inside, right, to kind of turn the people against, the Targaryens and the king. So that's why I saw it. Basically, it's a political play to try to get them some power.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I wasn't sure if I had missed something. I was going to look it up. And then now, obviously, we have Daemon still tripping balls at Harrenhal. I was confused at first.
Well, we had that great scene with the Brackens. And they,
yeah. That was good. He's like, bend the knee or burn. And the guy's like, we choose to burn.
And he turns back. And then the next thing he's sitting there and he's like, I just didn't think they would be that willing to die. It was so funny. I don't know why
that scene was exactly that. It was pure comedy. The way he was even the way they had him sit was just like,
he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
He couldn't believe it. The Riverlands, the men are so stubborn.
Yeah.
But then he gives the order to, burning them just shows that they have a reason to be defiant. But if you make them bleed, basically, it gives the green light to just basically ruin their lands, which of course backfires completely on them.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I get kind of back and forth about who is who, Bracken and Blackwood, which one is who, and which, like, they're very similar. And it's like at that scene at the end where they woke him up, I was like, is that the Blackwoods or is that the Brackens? It took me a second to figure out what was going on.
Is that Bracken is the ones that were wanted to burn, the bad guys.
Yes. Yeah. Willem Blackwood is the guy he's been working.
Yes, Blackwood is right, exactly. So the Blackwoods went and basically just started raping and pillaging the Bracken lands and all of their vassals who were for them. And those are the people that showed up in the Riverlands saying, everyone's bleeding. They're destroying everything. This is not warfare. Why would what he thought would basically he does get the Brackens. They say you cowed them. They will fight. but begrudgingly. But then you see that the damage has been done. I mean, you have no sympathy or loyalty whatsoever. They're only in it because you're threatening them.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting to watch that his play actually fail.
Yeah. And then obviously with David, you have the dream scene, which at first I didn't realize who he was having sex with. Turns out it's his mom, who he actually has never met, which I don't know if people all realize or remember. Yeah. And hence then why Alice Rivers is like, it's a pity you never met your mom after she talks to him.
Right. Yeah. Because she always seems to know exactly what's going on in his brain, like whatever weird stuff's happening.
Have you heard the rumors that some people are speculating that she's actually a ghost and only he has seen her? Because in every scene, he is the only one that interacts with her. And there's really no one else that even notices she's in the room.
I thought Simon looked at her. I thought Simon looked right at her.
In this episode, Simon did look at her. So I was like, oh, maybe that dispels that rumor. But then I heard again, people were like, the way he looked at her looked like if he was looking at something that.
Sure.
So I don't know.
There is one huge problem with that is that Alice Rivers has a huge part to play with other characters later in the story.
Yeah.
So unless they cut all of that, I like it. It's cool. But I mean, in the book, she's in the book, so she can't be a ghost if she was written about in a history book. So it'd be a diverging thing. They might be cutting that entire storyline for time. That could be fine too.
Yeah, definitely. With that also too, I was gonna say, I thought it was kind of odd to show Damon chopping wood.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah,
like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It just in general too, like. In the books, I don't remember. Do they try and rebuild Harrenhal? Like that seems like there's a war going on, and that's a multi-year effort.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to get it like to even be able to take anything more than like 20 people. Like they're just trying to get it so they can have an army there, right? So, and I think the whole point was to show that I think he even says it to Alice, like, he's willing to do as much work as any other man. Blah 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 blah. But on the other hand, he's like, call me king. That was actually a great line too. Yeah. What would you call the husband of the queen? King. That's what I thought. Consort. That part seems unnecessary. I thought that was so funny, but like it shows again, it's not just. I mean, he now it's obvious. Like before, it's hinted at. He is clearly making a play for the throne.
I mean, and then he essentially admits that to Alice. He's like, "Look, I'm going to take King's Landing, and then she's welcome to come with and rule with me."
Right.
But I will be king, not king consort. I will be king.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So I thought that was a weird how they kind of like juxtaposition of that. Like I'm better than everybody else, clearly, but then he's chopping wood and stuff. So I don't know if they're trying to show that he's like an everyday man who can do anything, or I don't really know what they're trying to go there. They probably just ran out of ideas of stuff for him to do walking around the castle. He should have just been given commands, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little weird.
One thing that I think I'm interested if they just did it for the hearsay aspect. So Rhaenyra says Sunfire was slain. Now, I wonder if that's just the thought and just like the news that they got, because as you and I know, Sunfire still has a place or a role to play.
She thinks that but later, I don't know who says it, Aemond or someone, or maybe Kristen said they left Sunfire there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. That's right. I forgot.
Sunfire's still in the woods dying somewhere, and they just couldn't bring him
back.
That's
what he said. Kristen said he's long in his dying, like as if he's going to die. I guess that doesn't confirm he is dead. So
correct. Yeah. And if I was making the show, my whole thing would be if Aemond woke up, they'd show his dragon wake up at the same time. Aegon, yeah, to show the connection between Rider and Dragon. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. So. And speaking of that, the scenes with Aegon I thought were great. So like in the book, George writes that his armor was essentially melted into his flesh. And I thought they did a good job of really doing what they could to portray, like especially when they lifted that piece up and that like black pus came out. Like, oh man, that was it also it reminded me it reminded me of this scene in the original show in like season 7 or 8 when Sam removes the grayscale from Jorah. Remember what I'm talking about? Where he has to go in and go piece by piece. They only show like the first 30 seconds of it.
Yeah.
But like that's what it was, like taking that armor off. They had to kind of just like scale off. I thought that was really, really good.
Yeah, it was cool, and it was a little heartbreaking too because you see Allison's trying not to. She can't really. Well, she's kind of in the way, so she gives it to the Maesters, whatever. But then she has that scene with him at the end, holding his hand. And then when she walks away, he says "mommy," which is interesting.
Yeah.
Again, he's still a kid. You forget.
Yeah.
It was really well done.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Anything else we missed? Then otherwise, I think I thought this was kind of the slowest of the episodes. I still thought it was good. If I had to rate again, we've given some 4s. I would have given a 5 to last week. I would say so in that case, relatively, I'd say then this would have to be a 3.5 at best.
Yeah. Yeah, somewhere around there. Yep. I mean, again, we had to have the deep breath. I mean, there was a lot of, we forgot there's a lot of little things that happen, like the conversations with Bela, with Corlys. Corlys now been offered the role of Hand of the Queen. Hand of the Queen.
Oh yeah, I liked her response. I'm of blood and fire. You need
Yes.
someone of salt and sea. Like,
correct. Yes, exactly. Right. She's basically, I'm a dragon rider, and I that's my place. You're the leader of Driftmark. Yeah. So there's that, and then the corresponding conversation with her sister in the Eyrie. Lady Arryn. You demand. I wanted a dragon. So I brought you one.
She's like, I've exceeded your request. Yes, because there's 2.
Right, exactly. It's like you didn't specify how big you wanted the dragons to be. Little snarky, obviously, is what's implied, but I thought that was pretty cool. And we do hear that again, set up a lot of moving pieces. You hear that the Greybeards from Craig and Stark are coming at some point. So it seems like everything's sort of converging on Harrenhal, right? You got Sir Broom heading there to talk to Daemon. The River Lords are really angry there. They go there and yell at him. So there's something brewing there. You have the Starks coming down. Everything's kind of going towards Harrenhal right now. I think it's only a matter of time before Aemond and Vhagar really try to make a play, because that's always the centerpiece of every battle they have in these Game of Thrones books. So I'm looking forward to all that. It's very cool.
Yeah.
But you got to set those pieces up.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing we just briefly need to touch on is Hugh Hammer again got some more screen time. And so obviously that is leading up to someone or to something for those that haven't read. The big scene that we need to talk about, Jace and Rhaenyra's conversation about finding dragon.
Right. Before we get to that, that's the most important part of the whole show. Before we get to that, so Hugh is at the gate, right? And they shut the gates on the people trying to leave. Again, leave to the whole, you see this severe unrest, right? And you're seeing it through Hugh and his wife's standpoint with their kid. But I thought it was really interesting when they shut the gates, they say by order of Prince Aemon. And a whole bunch of people go, what do you mean Aemon? Where's Aegon? Like, no one knows. He was smuggled in a box. So people have no idea, but people realize there's something up now too. So I thought that was really revealing. And again, Hugh is definitely our eyes for the common folk. And that was really well done. Not just with Maelyse's head and seeing everyone's realization that dragons are mortal, but that scene was fantastic. And that does play into that final scene where I was waiting for this. I was hoping they would give Jace that moment, because in the books, Jace is the one that reveals it. Rhaenyra says, the Greens have the armies, we don't have any armies. He says, yeah, but we have dragons. She's like, we have no one to ride them. He's like, we have dragons below us. We have a whole bunch of them sleeping. We just have no one to ride. She's like, well, we don't have riders. And he's the one that suggests there is lots of Targaryen blood. The blood of Valyria is everywhere. People are married into other families, but as we're going to find out, we've seen in the show so far, there are several that have ancestry as bastards. There's a whole bunch of them that have that Valyrian blood, whether it's Targaryen or the Valyrians or the Celtigars, whoever they may be. There's tons of them. So now it comes down to, can we find some crazy enough people to try to ride these riderless dragons? So it's a great recommendation. She's like, it's so crazy, it just might work.
And with that, Jace names Vermithor and Silverwing. So is that kind of confirming our thoughts that we're not going to get Cannibal, we're not going to get Sheep Stealer? And is that it?
No, we said there were 4. I thought he said there were 4 down there.
No, he only named Vermithor and Silverwing.
I know, yeah, but he said there were 4 down there. He said there are 4 dragons right below us. Now, I don't know if those are here's the tricky part. There's the wild ones, and then there's the riderless ones. They have a ton of dragons there.
Yeah.
I thought he just named 2. He only named 2 of the most famous ones. There's more, obviously, that aren't really named, right? Sheep Stealer's not. That's just what they call it. So
yeah,
that's how I interpreted it. I'll have to watch it again to see exactly what was implied there.
Okay, yeah,
But-
yeah. I still think I don't think they're going to give us every single dragon. I think there'll be one or two. I think will definitely be left out because then we also have Sea Smoke. We had that scene with Al and Hull from earlier.
Yep.
So
Right.
I think we're not going to get all of them, but we'll probably hopefully get a few of them. So
I think we'll get 4. I
Yeah.
think we're getting 4. That's my
Okay.
theory. Right. Too bad. I really
Sweet.
want to see the cannibal. Might be kind of
Yeah.
fun.
So let me ask you a final question: who's winning at this point, in your opinion?
I think at this point, it's still the Greens are definitely winning. Yeah. I mean, again, they had a Pyrrhic victory, but actually, I think it worked out for them because Aemon's in charge now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're definitely winning, especially when you see Daemon, who's the only one doing anything of worth, screws up pretty badly in this episode, and actually in his bid to take the Riverlands just ticks everybody off in the Riverlands. So, yes, I think right now you can say that the Greens are winning. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Rhaenyra's
Greens
gotta do
are
something
winning.
bold and brave, and maybe that's the play with the dragon.
Yeah, and as that thing I sent you this week, next week's episode is 70 minutes, which I think will make it the longest of the season. So it looks like we have some big things brewing this upcoming Sunday.
Yeah, I'm wondering where they're gonna go. I don't really know. I mean, all those pieces I just told you about, all those things that are working their way into for a full-out war. A lot of those pieces we haven't seen. So I think there's got to be a lot of maybe another episode on moving parts leading to more open warfare. I think is what we're going to see.
I think
maybe.
one thing we're going to for sure see next week is some way that they're going to give us like people trying to mount the riderless dragons.
Oh,
That's the
definitely.
only
And they
thing
showed that I think in the preview.
Yeah,
them
that's the
bringing
only thing-
dragons up.
Oh, okay. Did they? Okay. I'd say that's the
Yeah.
only thing I can
I
think of
implied-
for
yeah,
sure.
so-
But otherwise, like you said, like which direction it's going to go to have such a meaty episode, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Right. Yeah. And I'd be curious to see the last 2 episodes after that. They might be longer. We don't know. They could be really, or we could be completely off from where we think this is going to end because the last 2 episodes are an hour and a half. They've never said, right?
Yeah, and that's because my friend, I also sent my other friend who's into it that same text with the 70-minute thing, and she was like, "Any idea what you think it could be?" And I was like, because I cannot pinpoint or even have really a good guesstimate of where they're going to end this season, I really can't tell. So we shall see.
Especially where they have to kind of do things a little out of order. There's some things that should have happened already. They didn't. They're delaying. So who knows? They could be jamming all that stuff we keep saying. When did this happen? They could just jam it in one big episode for all we know.
Yeah, and
looking forward
Ryan Condal has said that there is going to be one more big battle. So
next week has to be a setup episode because they can't do that battle yet.
Yeah. Well, sweet.
Cool.
We're right on. I think that's all we got. Unless you got anything else.
I don't. No.
All right. No.
I want to watch it again.
Yeah. No. I've been rewatching them all. I'll definitely rewatch again. But yeah. Otherwise, everyone, let us know what you think of episode 5, and otherwise, we will see you here next week. Peace out.